Welcome to another episode of It Had to Be Said podcast, where we say out loud what you think in private. No topic is off limits. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the difference between a stud and a slut, right? Now, I think we all can agree that men and women are not the same, and there are certain things that come easier to women and much more difficult for men, and there are some things that come easy for men and much more difficult for women. But in the aspect of the sex game, I would have to sit there and say women win. Women control that, because you always hear me say women choose who they sleep with, men choose who they marry, right? Now, here's why there's a big difference between men and women, and why when men get to sleep with a lot of women, he's considered a stud and he's applauded by society, or not even society, he's applauded by other men, and why when women do it, they're typically looked down upon by men and other women. In most cases, not all cases. For a woman, having sex is pretty easy. If you're a beautiful woman or just a woman in general, you typically get invited to parties. You get into the clubs for free. Men are approaching you when you go to the grocery store. Men are asking you out on dates. Men are spending and wining and dining you. And they're doing that because they're trying to get into your pants, right? I heard this guy once time. He said on a talk show, he says, well, if you take a 18-year-old woman and she just graduated high school, an 18-year-old girl, and she looks beautiful, she's going to get invited to the yacht parties and everything else like that, invited on trips and getting flown out to Dubai and other places, where if you take that same 18-year-old guy, he's not getting invited to yacht parties and getting flown out. So the dynamics are different. For the average male, it's extremely difficult for him to sleep with women. Now, if you're an average guy and you walk up to a woman in a grocery store, you got to take out on dates, wine her and dine her before you can even possibly get in their pants, which may take a few months or so, right? But where a woman can sleep with a different guy every day if she wanted to, it's that easy for them. So the difference in that, and why we consider, or why most males, they applaud for a guy when he's able to sleep with multiple women, whether it's in a day, a week, or within a month period, is because he actually has to put in work. It's like the woman is the prize, and the fact that he's able to go around and yes, women, I will say it, and any man that disagrees with me, then I don't know what you're thinking. You're probably delusional. When it comes down to sex, women are the prize. Men are chasing women. Women are not chasing men. Okay, we're chasing the women for the CUDA. Women are not chasing us for the D. All right. So what happens is when a guy is able to get multiple women within a period of time or short period of time, other men are just like, wow, how did you do that? Because, I want that prize. So how did you get that done? Wow, you're amazing. Whereas if a woman is going around and she's sleeping around with multiple guys, whether it's a daily basis, weekly basis, or within a lot of guys within a short period of time, she's devalued herself. So as men, we look at it like, you are the prize and you're just giving it away to everyone. You're not necessarily losing value. It's just that you're not putting value on the prize that you have, So that is the difference as to why, society, most women and most men look at women that sleep around as sluts. Now, the exception for men are celebrities. If you're a celebrity, you're somebody who's famous, you have somebody who has status, you're somebody who has money, then you're you're sleeping around, men and women will look at you as a man whore. A great example of that would be the rapper Drake. Drake has status. He's a celebrity. He has money. So getting girls for him is extremely easy. In this case, he is the prize, not the women, right? Because women are chasing him. He has something of value, right? And when he's sleeping around and just with all these different women, this is why you hear in the industry and also in the hip hop community, you hear people refer to him as a man whore or a man slut. Nicki Minaj mentioned that one time, saying, she wouldn't mess with him because he's a man whore. Drake is such a man whore that he ended up sleeping with an adult film star, and he ended up having a kid with her. So how many other adult film stars has he actually slept with, right? So that is one of the key differences. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that I condone it, but the thing about it is something that I've always said. If you want to be successful in life, you have to accept reality for what it is. And if you're just going by what's right and what's wrong, or how things should be, or how you expect things to be, then you're living in a delusional world, and you're really gonna find life difficult, and you're not gonna be able to succeed, and you're gonna find yourself arguing and fighting a lot. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take a break here, pay some bills, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking about a young lady's experience after she lost 180 pounds and how she came to realize that the quality of men, or the type of men that she's able to get after she lost the weight, is completely different than the type of men that she was able to get when she was still over 200 pounds. So I had a chance to watch this video of a young lady who was sharing her experiences after losing about 180 pounds, right? And she was basically saying that, when she was over 200 pounds, there was a certain type of guy that was attracted to her. And these guys were into BBWs, big, beautiful women. And she was honest about it. She said, there were some guys who were very attractive. There were some guys who were financially well off and fit. And these guys had a thing for BBWs, but she came to realize she was a booty call, and she was somebody that, they seemed to call whenever, they just needed to have a good time, but it was not like they really wanted to go out with her or be seen in public with her or anything else like that. It's like she was like the sneaky link, the one that they hide somewhere. And then she mentioned, like, after she lost about 180 pounds, what happened was the type of guys that she was actually attracted to were approaching her. And for a time period, she basically refused to date any of those guys, because she basically was like, look, you didn't want to be seen in public with me, and you never approached me when I was big, over 200 pounds. So why would I want to see you now that I've lost over 180 pounds? Why am I going to be dealing with you? Only reason you are attracted to me is because of the way I look now. And she was explaining that after having that mindset for a while and talking to other women in her group, which is basically a group of, I guess was a community of big girls who lost weight, she learned something. She learned that, not saying the guys that are attracted to BBWs are not attractive. She learned that, most of the girls' experiences when they were pretty big girls, BBWs, they were able to date, probably as high as a 5. Anything higher than that was kind of like, sneaky links, guys who call them when they had no other options. And after they lost weight, they were able to get the type of guys that they were really attracted to, which are the guys who are fit, the guys who has their finances in place or have good jobs. And one of the young ladies had to explain to her that, everybody has their own particular taste or preference when it comes down to dating or somebody that they're attracted to. A guy that's attracted to a BBW is not going to go for, 120 pounds or 150 pound girl, because he wants somebody who's big. And a guy who's attracted to a slim girl is not going to go for a BBW. Everybody has their preference. And now when you've moved from that BBW category into being a small girl category, the guys that are attracted to small girls, they're going to be attracted to you. But when you were a BBW, they're not going to like you. And she had to explain how, not all women, but how social media and the women on social media, they're telling people, well, women are allowed to have standards and preferences, right? Like a woman can say, okay, I like to date an older guy. That's fine. A woman can say, well, I want a guy who's 6 foot tall. That's okay. I want a guy who already has his house. I want a guy who looks this way and is fit and everything else like that. And women are saying, yeah. But the minute a guy says he doesn't like a big girl, something's wrong with him. If he says, he wants a woman who cooks and cleans and does this, something's wrong with them. So So she was basically explaining how her experience and her having this conversation with all these other girls who've lost weight and transitioned from being big girls to small girls have really opened up her eyes to understand that everybody has their own personal preference. Now, keep in mind, this young lady, when I looked at her, I think she's probably well within her 30s. And it's amazing to find that, people are just understanding this in their 30s, that everybody has their own particular preference. And, just because somebody says that they don't like, a BBW doesn't mean that they hate women or they hate fat women. If somebody says, I like to be with an Asian girl or a white girl or a Hispanic girl, doesn't mean that they don't like black women or they don't like the other races. Everybody has their own particular preference. And I thought I thought it was good for her, but I also found it disturbing because I feel like there are certain things you learn as you go through life. And even if you don't experience those things, I think with everything out there, whether it's social media, movies, television, just basic life, I feel like, no matter what you see on social media, you shouldn't necessarily be able to be tricked into something. And this is why I have this other podcast that I posted. I think it was the last podcast I posted, episode number 23, where I basically say be careful who and what you listen to because it can really damage you. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because I thought that was kind of like a very interesting, an interesting video and an interesting perspective on everything. And I loved the way she was able to connect, one thing and apply it to all these other aspects. And I think that's a great sign of self-development and self-growth. All right, that's all I'm going to say in regards to this podcast episode. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good night. Thank you for listening and supporting my podcast. I would love to hear your thoughts on this particular episode. You can leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening to my podcast on. If there's a topic or viral video you'd like for me to cover, you can DM me on Instagram at It Had to Be Said Podcast. I post new episodes Tuesday and Thursday at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.